Deep in the annals of Danish and German folklore, there is a being with a fearsome reputation. Songs and poems record his evil ways, especially of the night he meets a young boy in the forest. The audience is relieved to learn that the boy is with his father, who will surely protect him from this evil presence, known as the Erlking. But the tale raises an important question. What happens if you encounter something so evil that nobody, not even those who are supposed to protect you, even believes that it's really there? What if this powerful, capricious creature offers you shelter from the dangers all around you? What if he promises you gifts, if only you swear in return to leave behind your old life and to join him in his world? What if you refuse? What happens when a powerful and terrible king does not get his way? Hi everyone, I'm Nick and welcome back to Beasts of the Old World, a channel all about ancient folklore and mythical creatures from across the globe. As always, dropping a like and a comment on the video helps it reach the right people and really helps the channel to grow. With that said, let's get into the myth of the Erlking and what lessons this story holds for us today. The Erlking has one of the most terrifying reputations in all of the folklore bestiary. Over the years, he's become a fearsome figure of the forest, a huge, dark, imposing woodland lord who misleads and waylays travellers who stray into his domain, and abducts children who are never seen again. There aren't many authentic sources that tell of the Erlking, so the wealth of information concerning him online is rather surprising. Multiple websites tell us that, in European folklore and myth, the Erlking is a sinister elf who lingers in the woods. He stalks children who stay in the woods for too long, and kills them with a single touch. While the New Oxford American Dictionary describes the Erlking as a bearded giant or goblin who lures little children to the land of death. Modern sources give him a distinctive look too. An enormous, looming figure with a huge antlered helm like a mane, as though he were part tree himself. But is this really the case? Where did this image come from? And was he always associated with the forest? The primary source for the Erlking comes from the 1792 poem by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, simply titled Erlkönig. But old as this poem may be, it's not the origin of the character or the term. The first seeds of the Erlking were planted in the Danish folk ballad from 1739, called Sir Olaf, He Rides, which tells the tale of Sir Olaf as he rides to attend his own wedding. Along the way, the Erlking's daughter appears in the forest and repeatedly invites him to dance with her. He refuses, each time rejecting her advances and telling her that tomorrow he's due to be wed, that he loves his bride and will remain true to her. Infuriated, the Erlking's daughter gives him one last chance, but when Sir Olaf again refuses, she strikes him and sends him on his way, deathly pale. The following morning, on the day of his wedding, his bride finds him at the edge of the forest, lying dead underneath his scarlet cloak. Goethe built on these themes in his own poem, Erlkönig, but this time it was the Erlking himself who was the enemy. Who rides there so late through the night dark and drear? The father it is, with his infant so dear. He holdeth the boy clasped tight in his arms, he holdeth him safely, and keepeth him warm.
My son, why do you shield your face thus to hide?
Look, father, the Erlking is close by our side. Do you see not the Erlking with crown and with train?
My son, 'tis the mist rising over the plain.
O come thou, dear infant, O come thou with me, for many a game I will play there with thee. In my land lovely flowers their blossoms unfold, my mother shall grace thee with garments of gold.
Father, oh father, how dost thou not hear the words that the Erlking now breathes in my ear?
Be calm, son, 'tis only your mind that deceives. 'Tis but the wind that sighs through the leaves.
Wilt thou come, dear infant, you'll come with me there? My daughters shall tend thee with sisterly care. My daughters by night their glad festival keep. They'll dance thee, and rock thee, and sing thee to sleep.
Father, oh father, how dost thou not see how the Erlking his daughters has brought here for me?
My son, calm your nerves, for I see it aright. 'Tis the aged grey willows deceiving thy sight.
I love thee, I'll have thee, I'll take thee, dear boy. But if thou art unwilling, then force I'll employ.
Father, please, father, he seizes me fast. Help me, the Erlking has hurt me at last.
The father now gallops, and with terror half wild, he grasps in his arms the poor shuddering child. And as he reached his own courtyard with toil and with dread, the child in his arms he found motionless, dead. One of the first things I noticed when looking at this poem was how, beyond a passing mention of a willow tree, there is no mention of a forest. There's no physical description of the Erlking either, except that he might be mistaken for a wisp of fog or mist, at least according to the father. This got me wondering, where has this association with the forest come from? And where has the iconic look of this being come from, if not this poem? Most of our modern understanding of the Erlking's appearance, his character, powers and intentions, while they have their roots in this poem, have developed later. Indeed, in an era of fantasy fiction, folklore often has its edges blurred or distorted. Yet how the Erlking came to be specifically associated with the forest is more clearly explainable. The word Erlking is generally taken to mean elf king, or king of the elves. However, the term itself comes originally from the Danish term Erlkönig. It was Johann Gottfried von Herder who introduced the term into the German language when he translated Sir Olaf he Rides into his own ballad, which he called Erlkönig's Tochter, the Erlking's daughter. The problem is that there is no direct translation in German for the Danish term Erlkönig. If it was supposed to be Elf King or Elven King, then really the correct German term would have been Erlkönig or Elbenkönig. Erlkönig in German is much closer to Alder King, which is a big clue. The black alder is a tree native to pretty much all of mainland Europe, commonly found near streams, rivers, and on wetlands. Given this translation, it's not difficult to see how this character in the forest grew closer. The alder's association with marshes and bogs may have served to increase the Erlking's association with kidnapping too, as these were treacherous places where folk often went missing. Despite its fairly ambiguous origins and the rich, if not entirely justified, modern imagery, the Erlking is inescapably a malevolent spirit of the forest, and a worryingly prescient allegory for our own troubled times. The forest is, of course, the archetypal place where you can easily lose your sense of time and direction, get lost, and encounter great danger in the dark. This is an important setting for the myth, especially in a world where truth is often obscured and where the correct path is difficult, if not impossible, to discern. In such an environment, any powerful figure becomes increasingly dangerous. But what happens when this figure is so evil, and the thought of his existence so outrageous, that no one believes it? In Goethe's poem, the Erlking is dismissed by the father as mist or fog, the sound of the wind in the leaves, yet the boy sees him clearly. How often today does one person's truth become another's fake news? How can somebody be utterly convinced of danger while another dismisses it as pure fantasy? Who, if anybody, does this serve? Perhaps this is a warning about how easy it is to forget lessons from the past, no matter how hard-learned they were. The horrors of global war in the 20th century still echo, but there are few alive today who remember it firsthand, or indeed the events that led up to it. For many of us, these events are a distant memory, a story passed down, now unthinkable, impossible to imagine happening again. Comparisons of some modern world leaders to 20th century dictators are, rather worryingly, not unusual today, but are commonly dismissed as hysterical ravings, just like the father dismisses his son's urgent pleas for help. But why does he refuse to believe his son? Maybe the idea of the Erlking is simply so outlandish to him that he can't accept it. But maybe there's a deeper reason. Maybe he realizes that even if the boy is telling the truth, there really is nothing he can do about it. After all, denial is often easier than admitting powerlessness. The boy, however, recognizes the truth. Evil doesn't arrive as a threat. It arrives as your friend. The Erlking offers safety from the storm, gifts and luxury. It's easy to see why so many would choose to believe such a figure rather than face the dark forest alone, even if they sense the lurking cost. Importantly, and inevitably, there's a turning point in the poem. When persuasion fails, the Erlking's mask drops. His offers become commands. His sweetness hardens into threats, and finally, he seizes the child outright. There's nothing the boy can do. After all, he's just a child, alone in the forest, at the mercy of a powerful and hungry spirit. Whether the boy goes willingly or not, the result is the same. Despite his son's reports, this escalation, from seduction to violent coercion, and finally death, goes on completely unacknowledged by the father. He hears none of it, he sees none of it. He explains away the Erlking's presence, interpreting every sign as something harmless, the rustle of leaves, the shimmer of mist. His failure is not that he can't hear, but that he refuses to believe there could be a threat at all. Perhaps it's not his fault. Perhaps he never had any chance of hearing the truth. Today, algorithmically created echo chambers mean that warnings sound only in closed rooms. Even if we each call out about our own Erlking, our voices rarely reach those who most need to hear. Evil thrives in these spaces, moving unseen while those nearby remain certain that nothing is wrong. And perhaps the Erlking is only fever and dream. But perhaps not. The poem never says one way or the other, and that uncertainty is the point. In folklore, and in life, evil thrives in ambiguity, in doubt. Uncertainty is often the cloak under which it conceals itself. If we're to read it in this way, Der Erlkönig becomes more than a ghostly ballad. To me, it's a parable about charm as a weapon, the peril of underestimating threats, and the speed with which a soft voice can turn into an iron grip. It warns that while authoritarian horror may feel like a thing of the past, we cannot afford to act like the father. By the time we admit the danger exists, it may already be too late. The poem itself reminds us of this. Its final lines shift suddenly from the present tense and into the past. The father now gallops, and with terror half wild, he grasps in his arms the poor shuddering child, and as he reached his own courtyard with toil and with dread, the child in his arms he found, motionless, dead. This signals the inevitability of what was to happen. It was always going to end badly. The boy was always going to die. The father's refusal to accept the danger has tragic consequences. He thought it was only fog, only the wind in the leaves. We must hope that we know better. There is always an Erlking riding beside us, and if we're foolish enough to ignore him, our ride may end the same way.